Hey everyone! Today we're talking about one of the most interesting times in Chinese history, the Zhou Dynasty. This dynasty lasted longer than any other in China's history, and the things they accomplished still matter today. The Zhou Dynasty was split into two parts, the Western Zhou and the Eastern Zhou. They took over after defeating the Shang Dynasty and eventually led to the Qin Dynasty, which is where China got its name. One of the Zhou dynasty's biggest ideas was the mandate of heaven. This wasn't just a story, it was a way of explaining why someone had the right to rule. It said that a king's power came from the approval of the gods. The Zhou rulers used this idea to explain why they overthrew the Shang. For hundreds of years, the mandate of heaven influenced how Chinese rulers thought about power. It also set the expectation that leaders had to be fair and good to keep their authority. In the Western Zhou period, the government was set up in a way that shared power across the land. The king gave land to nobles, who promised to be loyal and helped the king with taxes and soldiers. These nobles ran their own areas, but they still had to answer to the king. This system was like feudalism in Europe, with a social ladder that went from the king at the top to peasants at the bottom. This setup helped everyone work together, which made life better for many people. During this time, culture thrived. The Zhou improved the Shang's metalworking skills and created better tools and weapons. They also developed writing and started making some of the first Chinese books. One of these, the Shujing, or Book of Songs, was a collection of poems written between the 11th and 7th centuries BCE. These poems weren't just for fun. They taught people how to be kind and moral. The teamwork between different social groups during this time led to lots of new ideas and creativity. But this period of cooperation didn't last forever. Over time, the nobles became less loyal to the king. They started doing things their own way, and stopped following the king's orders. This disloyalty reached its peak in 771 BCE, when a group of tribes and rebellious nobles killed the Zhou king. This event marked the end of the Western Zhou period. Invasions, probably by a group called the Sirong, added to the chaos. To stay safe, the Zhou rulers moved their capital to Luoyang, starting the Eastern Zhou period. This move was meant to protect the dynasty and keep control over their lands. Even with these changes, the Eastern Zhou had a tough time holding power, and the central government grew weaker. And now let's dive deeper into the Zhou dynasty's Eastern Zhou period. Even though this time was full of chaos and wars, it also became a time of amazing ideas, art, and philosophy that shaped Chinese culture for a long time. In the early part of the Eastern Zhou, called the Spring and Autumn period, people still followed some old traditions from the Western Zhou days. But over time, the unity they once had started to fade. The Zhou kings in Luoyang didn't have much real power anymore. Instead, 7 big states, Chu, Han, Qi, Qin, Wei, Yan, and Zhao, became stronger and competed to be the most powerful. Even though the Zhou kings weren't in charge, people still believed they had the mandate of heaven. This belief made all the states want to prove they were the true heirs of the Zhou. At first, battles in the spring and autumn period were fought with rules and honor. But since everyone used the same strategies, no one could win easily. This led to a lot of pointless wars. Over time, the way wars were fought changed, leading to a new time called the Warring States period. This era was harsh and brutal, with states fighting fiercely to become the most powerful. It was during this time that Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War, a famous book about war strategies that people still read today. While Sun Tzu wrote about winning wars, another thinker named Mo Ti, or Mo Si, dreamed of peace. He tried to stop the fighting by sharing ideas about defense and attack equally with all states. He hoped that if no state had an advantage, they'd stop fighting. Sadly, his plan didn't work. Each state kept hoping they'd win the next battle, so the wars went on. One important person in the Warring States period was Shang Yang, a leader in Qin. Unlike Mo Ti, Shang Yang believed in winning at any cost. He didn't care about honor or old traditions. His ideas helped King Wu of Zhou, who eventually defeated the other states and became Shi Huangdi, the first emperor of a united China. This ended the Zhou Dynasty and started the Qin Dynasty. Even though the Qin tried to erase the Zhou's achievements, many of their contributions lasted. The Zhou made big improvements in farming, like irrigation systems, which were later used in projects like the Grand Canal. They also got really good at using horses and chariots in battle, which the Qin continued to use. The Zhou were experts in metalwork too, making tools and weapons that the Qin melted down to create statues. Sadly, the Qin didn't appreciate the Zhou's culture and art. The Eastern Zhou period was a golden age for philosophy, with great thinkers like Confucius, Lao Tzu, and Han Feizi, sharing ideas that shaped Chinese culture. Confucianism focused on morality and government, Taoism encouraged harmony and balance, and legalism was strict and practical. This was the philosophy the Qin followed. Many Zhou books were destroyed by the Qin, but some survived because brave people hid them. These include the Analects of Confucius, the I Ching, and the Book of Rites. Later dynasties like the Han brought back a lot of Zhou culture and valued these works. Music was another thing the Zhou valued deeply. To them, music wasn't just for fun. It was a way to build good character and teach values. Confucius believed that music could make rulers more fair and virtuous. Every piece of music had a dance to go with it, showing harmony between people and the universe. The Qin ignored these traditions, but they became popular again during the Han Dynasty. The Zhou also made big improvements in writing. They took the simple script from the Shang Dynasty and made it more advanced. This helped them write down their history, ideas, and rituals, preserving their culture for the future. Even during the chaos of the Eastern Zhou period, this dynasty made a huge impact on Chinese history. Their ideas in government, philosophy, art, and culture were so important that not even the Qin could erase them. The Zhou dynasty's long reign set the stage for everything that came after, making it one of the most important times in China's history.